Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at a declassified CIA report. This is from 1983, and it's called Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. And it's about altered states of consciousness, even like out-of-body experiences, and it tries to explain these things through science like neuroscience and quantum physics and all this stuff.
Yeah, you know what's so interesting about this document is how it brings together this hard science with these metaphysical ideas, like these esoteric experiences. It suggests that we can use like brainwave manipulation energy fields to actually reach these altered
But
states.
just to be clear, this wasn't just some fringe scientist who wrote this. This was a legitimate military
Oh,
assessment.
yeah, absolutely. It was put together by a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, and he was specifically looking at this gateway process training program. And even in the report, he says, to really grasp this, we might need to use more than just logic. You might need a little intuition, too.
So how does this gateway process actually work? What's the deal?
Well, it's a system with multiple steps, and it uses a combination of things like audio tapes, biofeedback, and certain exercises. And the goal is to get you to these altered states of consciousness, and they call it hemisync, which is where the two sides of your brain, your two hemispheres become synchronized.
I've heard of brainwaves before, but like, what exactly is hemisync? And why is it so important?
So, our brains have two sides, right? You got the left side, which is usually thought of as the logical, analytical side. And then you have the right side, which is more about intuition and creativity. So hemisync is trying to quiet down that left brain that's always chattering and let the right brain kind of take over.
So you're saying it's like shifting from a state where you're analyzing everything to a state where you're just experiencing and feeling.
Exactly. And the report says that when you make that shift, it opens you up to all these different levels of awareness and how you perceive things.
So how do you get to that hemisync state? What are these audio tapes all about?
So the report talks a lot about the work of this guy, Robert Monroe, who was a pioneer in this area of binaural beats. He developed this technology called hemisync, and it uses specific sound frequencies to actually influence the patterns of your brain waves.
Wait, so just by listening to certain sounds, you're saying you can actually change how your brain works?
That's the idea. It's like using sound to kind of gently guide your brainwaves into a specific pattern. And the report says this can lead to, really deep states of relaxation and even a heightened sense of perception.
That's wild. So where does this whole out-of-body experience thing fit in?
Okay, so the report says that if you become really good at this gateway process, the advanced practitioners, they can actually have out-of-body experiences where they basically separate their consciousness from their physical body.
Hold on. How is that even possible? Are we talking about astral projection?
Well, the report tries to explain this, this mystical experience using science. So it uses the ideas of quantum physics and suggests that maybe consciousness isn't just limited to our physical bodies.
You're saying my consciousness could be like a Wi-Fi signal that can go beyond my actual device.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. And the report even has these really interesting diagrams to show these concepts. It talks about something called the homunculus, which is this weird, distorted representation of the human body based on all the sensory input.
Okay, I'm picturing like a little misshapen person with giant hands and a huge face. What does that have to do with out-of-body experiences?
Well, it shows how some areas, like our hands and face, they have a bigger presence in our brains because they get more sensory information. And the report says that by using hemisync to change our perception and awareness, maybe we can actually change this sensory map and even detach our consciousness from our bodies.
So they're saying through these audio tapes, biofeedback, and mental exercises, I could potentially have an experience where my consciousness leaves my body.
That's what they're proposing. And they even give examples of people who have apparently achieved some pretty incredible things through this gateway process. Like they say some people could access information from past events or even influence things that haven't happened yet.
Wait a minute. Accessing information from the past or future? Are they saying time travel is possible?
Well, not exactly in the way we usually think about it. The report dives into this idea of the universe being like a hologram.
I've seen those holograms before. The 3D images that look so real. But how does that apply to the whole universe?
Yeah, it's a pretty mind-blowing concept. The report uses the work of a physicist named Itzhak Bentov. He proposed that the universe is like this giant hologram where each part actually holds information about the whole thing.
So you're saying the universe is like a giant cosmic hard drive with information about everything that has happened and will happen.
You could put it that way. And the report suggests that by getting into these altered states of consciousness, we can tap into this universal hologram and access information that's usually hidden from us.
Okay, now this is getting really interesting. So we're talking about being able to access knowledge beyond our normal perception. maybe even beyond the limits of time and space. Tell me more about how this holographic universe idea connects to this gateway process.
So they're saying that the gateway process might be the key to unlocking this potential we have inside us. It's like using these techniques to tune our consciousness to a specific frequency where we can start to perceive this vast network of information.
I'm trying to imagine what that would be like to suddenly be able to access this like cosmic library of knowledge. It's amazing, but also kind of scary.
I know, right? And the report goes even further. They say that the gateway process could let people connect with something called a universal consciousness, or the absolute, which is like the ultimate source of all knowledge and creation.
Whoa. So we're talking about merging with like the source of everything. This report is blowing my mind.
It's definitely a wild ride. And what's even crazier is that they try to explain these mystical concepts using scientific terms. It really blurs the lines between what we think of as science and spirituality.
I'm starting to see why this document has caused so much interest and debate. It really pushes the limits of what we think we know about reality and our place in the universe. But I still have so many questions. Like, how do these techniques actually work? What are the specific methods they're using?
Well, the report goes into detail. It lays out like step by step how to get to these altered states. And they call them focus levels, and each level represents like a deeper level of awareness.
So it's like a training program for your consciousness. You start with the basics and then work your way up to these more advanced techniques.
Exactly. Yeah. The early focus levels are about relaxation and visualization exercises, kind of like guided meditation. But then as you move up, the techniques get more into like manipulating energy fields and even like the report claims traveling through time and space.
Okay, now you're really getting me interested. What do they mean by manipulating energy fields? Is this where it gets like really out there?
Well, the report ties this energy manipulation to like out-of-body experiences or OBEs. It says we have this like energy body that goes beyond our physical form and that you can train this energy body to detach and travel on its own.
So it's not just our minds leaving our bodies. We're talking about an actual energy component that can explore other realms.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
And they even describe this technique called Focus 15 that's supposed to help you achieve out-of-body travel. It involves visualizations and energy manipulation to separate your energy body from your physical one.
Hold on, let me get this straight. They're saying I can learn to detach my energy body from my physical body, like some kind of astral astronaut, and explore different dimensions.
Yeah. The report claims that with practice, people can get really good at navigating the out-of-body state.
Yeah.
They can even interact with other beings or entities in those realms.
Okay, now I'm picturing myself floating through some cosmic landscape, meeting all sorts of strange beings.
Yeah.
It's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It's definitely a wild concept. But remember, they're trying to explain these amazing claims using that holographic universe model we talked about before.
Right, the idea that the universe is like a giant hologram containing information about everything.
Yeah.
So are they saying that when we have these out-of-body experiences, we're actually tapping into this universal hologram?
Yeah, that's the implication. Like, our consciousness is freed from the limits of our bodies and can directly access this huge amount of information.
So theoretically, you could use an out-of-body experience to get information from the past or even glimpses of the future.
That's one of the potential uses they outline in the report.
Yeah.
They suggest that the gateway process could be used for things like remote viewing intelligence gathering, even influencing things remotely.
Wow, that's fascinating and a little creepy. What about the ethics of using these techniques for stuff like that?
Yeah, the report acknowledges that there are potential risks and challenges with the gateway process. It says it's super important to have proper training ethical guidelines and responsible use of these techniques because, we're talking about possibly messing with information and energy in ways that could have big consequences.
Right, it's not something to be taken lightly. But let's go back to this idea of the absolute for a second. The report seems to say that the gateway process isn't just about getting information or having cool out-of-body experiences. It has a spiritual side too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The report gets pretty deep into metaphysics here. It proposes that through these techniques, individuals can transcend their own consciousness and merge with the absolute and experience like this profound sense of unity and connection with everything.
So it's not just about expanding your knowledge. It's about expanding your consciousness and understanding where you fit in the universe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The report says that this experience of merging with the absolute can lead to deep insights, spiritual growth, a stronger sense of purpose. It's like tapping into a source of wisdom and understanding that's beyond our normal human comprehension.
It's almost like reaching enlightenment through science. That's a pretty radical idea.
It is, and it's one of the things that makes this report so interesting. It's trying to bridge that gap between science and spirituality, suggesting that there might be this deeper underlying reality that connects us all.
Okay, so we've talked about the potential benefits of the gateway process. But what about the risks? Are there any dangers in playing around with your brain waves and trying to have out-of-body experiences?
The report does say there are potential downsides. Yeah, altered states of consciousness can be disorienting or even destabilizing for some people.
Hmm.
And there's also the risk of running into negative entities or energies when you're out of your body. That's why they stress having proper guidance and training.
So it sounds like you're saying this isn't something to try at home. You need experienced teachers and a safe environment to explore these techniques responsibly.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about following instructions. It's about understanding the risks and benefits, having the right mindset, and being ready for these intense experiences that might come up.
Well, this deep dive has taken us down some interesting paths. We've gone from brain waves and hemisync to out-of-body experiences and holographic universes.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process. It really makes you think, what if we could actually tap into this hidden potential? What could that mean for humanity?
Right. It's exciting, but also a little scary. Like imagine if people could access information from the past or future whenever they wanted. How would that change how we understand history, how we make decisions, even our relationships?
Yeah, it's like everyone having a crystal ball.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that create all sorts of problems too? Like, what about people abusing it, manipulating others, or even just chaos if everyone knew this stuff?
Those are good points. And that's why thinking about the ethical side of the gateway process is so important. The report talks about the potential for misuse, especially for things like spying or military operations. If people could use these techniques to influence events or get an advantage over others, that would bring up serious ethical questions.
It's like opening Pandora's box.
Yeah.
You have this incredible potential for good, but you might also unleash something dangerous.
Hmm.
I guess that's why the report says responsible use and ethical guidelines are so important.
Absolutely. It's not just about the technology. It's about having the wisdom to use it in the right way. And that's a challenge we'd have to face as a society if these techniques became more common.
And it's not just about practical stuff either. This report really makes us rethink what we know about consciousness and reality. If we could train our minds to do these amazing things, what does that say about who we really are?
It's a deep question, and the report doesn't avoid it. That idea of the absolute, that universal consciousness we talked about, they say that with the gateway process, we can not only access information and control energy, but we can also connect with this deeper level of reality. It's like experiencing how everything's connected, realizing we're part of something much bigger.
It's a pretty mind-blowing idea.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if what we think is real is just a tiny part of what's actually out there.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a whole universe of possibilities, and the gateway process is just one way to get there.
That's a great way to put it. And I think that's one of the coolest things about this report. It encourages us to think about the huge potential of the human mind and the idea that there's so much more to learn about ourselves and the universe.
This has been one of the most interesting deep dives we've done. This CIA report on the gateway process has really made me think outside the box and consider some pretty wild possibilities.
It definitely makes you use your imagination. Whether you buy into all the crazy claims or not, it makes you ask some big questions about consciousness, reality, and what humans are capable of.
So for our listener out there, what's the one thing you'd want them to take away from this deep dive?
I think it's this. The human mind can do extraordinary things. We're just starting to understand what's possible. And this report on the gateway process, whether it's science or science fiction, it encourages us to explore these possibilities with an open mind. And who knows, maybe someday we'll find out that reality is even more amazing than we ever thought.
That's a great way to end things. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. I have a feeling we'll be coming back to these ideas again.
Me too. This conversation is just getting started.